Hello, and welcome to today's session, Seeing the Oak Tree and the Acorn, Reading Today's Signals of Massive Future Change. My name is Shannon. I am Nokia's Head of Ecosystem and Trend Scouting. And today I am joined by two futurists, both of whom I personally admire. So this is a very exciting session for me, and I know it's going to be for you as well. I'd like to introduce to you Elina Hiltunen and Cathy Hackl. Now, when we futurists use the word signals, that is something that we use to indicate small things that are happening that we can see around us today that are really the seeds of future change. You know, the acorn that will someday become an oak tree, and the metaphor that we have as the title of this session. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask both of you is, what's the signal that you're seeing right now, signal or signals, that is the indicator for the most significant change that you think is coming towards us in the next 10 years? Cathy, you're nodding, so I'm going to ask you first. What is it?
Leslie,
what's really striking you right now?
There are two signals, and they're kind of part of the same signal in some ways, that are really striking me right now. And they're both connected to exploration. And one of them is space exploration. So, everything that's happening in the space race, the new space race, let's say. And the other one is more on the virtual world. So exploration in those virtual worlds and that idea of world building. And these are kind of two of the signals that I'm tracking to that mean a massive significant change to human behavior and to who we are as workers, as families, etc. So those are definitely the two that I'm tracking to right now very heavily.
And you said that they were connected together in a way. How do you see them actually connecting? Because when I put on a VR headset, for example, I'm not thinking about Mars. So where do you see them going together?
It's about exploration between the finite world physical world that we live in, right? So I think that's the common denominator there. It's exploration outside of the current physical limitations that we have in our current world, and then exploration into the digital space. So one is going, interplanetary, and the other one is going more into a virtual space, where, if you think about interplanetary, it's going to be hard to colonize. It's going to be hard to become a multiplanetary species. Whereas in world building, it's unlimited, right? It's truly unlimited what we can do. But they're both that sense of human exploration beyond the current finite physical world that we live in.
Excellent, thank you. Elina, what's a signal that's striking you at the moment?
Thank you, Leslie, for asking, because I have to say that I'm a true fan of weak signals. I did my PhD thesis about weak signals, but for me, they are very concrete examples. What is happening now? They are like something that you can spot, and then you are like, wow, what is this? What is this happening there? A couple of weak signals, a couple of examples. Nokia starting to build 4G network to the moon. I think that is cool weak signal. And then, for example, one weak signal is IKEA is starting to build a department store that is only selling used furnitures. So this is one example. Then, of course, I'm a technology enthusiastic myself, so I really like to watch all the gadgets and so on, and especially if you think about CES. So all the things that are there on the show, on the CES, you can really think that they are the weak signals of today, and they can be big things in the future. An example is a company that made this parallel reality, and it's a display, and everybody can look at the same display, and everybody is seeing the different kind of stuff in the display. So even though they're looking at the same display.
And are you talking about a physical
display? Yeah. So that's quite unique thing that is happening. And of course, not to mention the Neon, the virtual robot, virtual avatar that was also in this CES. So I think that is cool.
If we go further into exploring the digital world, into exploring space, into having 4G on the moon, what actually will come from that? What are the things that you see that we might be able to expect? Because that's actually where the real change tends to happen. Cathy, do you want to start?
Yeah, I would say that some of those second order effects that you're asking about, what could happen? What could this lead to, right? I see, for example, from the space side of things, obviously a whole new world of careers that are going to open up, not only in our physical world, but off planetary, right? So I also, one of the things I like to think about when I'm thinking about what happens in the future, what are the potential futures, is I spend a lot of time listening to my kids, because they are in some way those signals. If you spend time with your kids, those signals appear just by talking to them. And I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she's always talked about being a chef or a food scientist. And she said to me last Saturday specifically, she said, "Mommy, I think I want to become a lunar food scientist." And she's 10. She's 10.
Wow.
She's 10. She said, "I want to become a lunar food scientist," because I've been talking a lot about space with them, and a lot of the things that are happening, here in the US and abroad, and kind of this new space race of sorts. And that to me was a signal that if we become, if we get back to the moon, if we start, going towards Mars, and terraforming in some way, this is going to open up opportunities that children didn't really see before, right? New jobs. What are those jobs of the future, right? Is it going to be limited to jobs here on Earth? So, for her to say to me, "I want to become a lunar food scientist," signal to me that she's seen opportunities beyond just this world. So obviously that opens up a whole bunch of second order effects, like how do you recruit for the moon? How do you get people on the moon, et cetera? How do people communicate? What are the communication systems that will be in place for me to communicate with my daughter when she is a lunar food scientist, right? What are the nutritional value of these foods that she will grow on the moon? So those are, in that sense, from the space side, that's a second order effect.
Elina, let's bring you in here. What second order effects are you seeing from the signals that are most significant to you right now?
Well, I see actually a couple of things that I would like to lift here. So one of them is human technology interaction. So human and technology is going to merge even more and more in the future. And we are already merged with the technology. I have this Polar smart watch that is tracking my movements and how many steps I take and my pulse and so on. But I also used to have this NFC chip installed in my hand. It was here in my hand under the skin, and I used that as a key to my house. So I had an electric lock. So I just waved my hand and the lock recognized me because of the NFC chip. I didn't have it anymore. I took it away, but I had it for 1.5 years. And it was amazing. I never forgot my keys to my phone. I always. But, anyway, I think that this is more and more going to happen. Of course, not everybody is going to have chips installed and so on. But for example, here in Finland, one bank was introducing a possibility to have a ring in your finger that has NFC chip. And then when you go to the shop, you can just pay with the ring. So that is, I think, that is going to be the future, that we are going to emerge more with the technology, and we are going to be a little bit more like cyborgs. But Leslie, as I'm looking to you, you are a cyborg already. You have your headphones and you have eyeglasses on, and they are like technology that is making you to see better and making you to hear my voice and so on. So we are already cyborgs. But then the other thing, which I think it's very important, it's the sustainability, circular economy, and these things. Because if we don't have the planet, we can't be the technology or anything. So this is very important, and especially when you think about the electric waste. So this is a big issue, and these things are something that you should take very carefully, and companies are also taking very carefully and considering these issues. But in the future, we might have problems how to get certain minerals and so certain metals. And that's why we need to emphasize more on the circular economy to make more out of little stuff. So I think that is something that every company, no matter in what industry they are, but every company has to go to that direction.
I pay a lot of attention to dystopian views of the future because that helps us understand what we don't want to have happen, right? So it's important to watch Terminator and to think about, robots out of control so that we can make sure that we don't actually have that future come to pass.
But Leslie, I have to say
yeah.
here that it's also very important to have these kind of like positive views of the future, not only to see future as a dystopian robots are killing all us future, because that actually gives people the feeling of hopelessness about the future. And now we have to also think about positive futures and how can we do these positive futures. As you said that Nokia has this circular economy team. This is how you are making the positive future. By creating
absolutely. And so one of the things that I love when you look at all of the innovations in Star Trek, for example, every single one of them actually is now possible except for teleportation. And so, right. And so, and so we can 3D print food, for example, and maybe Cathy, maybe that's what your daughter is going to get into as her, as a lunar food scientist. Maybe it's 3D printing.
And Cathy, you have done very good work because I think that technology is going to be so big part of our life that in the future we also need more women and more girls that are doing the science work there and thinking about the technologies, and especially when we think about the algorithms, how much power they have in our lives. So we need to have the women coders to not to give that to the men, this task. We need women too. We need the actually smartest brains to do this kind of like technological new innovation, and those brains also women and male have those brains. So.
And to that point, Elina, I started the Cathy Hackl Scholarship for Women with the VR AR Association. People think, scholarship and they need to be a Rockefeller. No, you don't have to be, a baron of any sorts to start a scholarship. You can start small. And what I did is I created one scholarship to help one woman. I gave her membership to the association and mentorship one-on-one with me. And my hope is to grow the scholarship because I'm on a mission. One of my missions is to get more women and minorities into the virtual reality and augmented reality industry, because as we create these worlds, we need different points of view. We don't need just one specific point of view. We need such a diverse point of view in every sense of the word, cognitive, and racial, religious. Like we need so many diverse point of views so that whatever we build in this virtual space is more representative of who we are.
That's so important that you said. And I like, Cathy, your attitude that you have this mentoring system and so on. And that is a very good example that we all can do something about to make the better future. I have this project called Science for Girls, and I try to encourage even little girls to start to be interested in technology, because sometimes these technology toys have been very like boy-oriented toys. So I think that they need princess fairy tales of technology. This is my mission there, to have them interested in technology too.
So these are some really interesting views of the future that you're both talking about. Now, if anybody is interested in learning more about futures thinking or how to kind of start incorporating the future into their lives today, what are some of the things that you would suggest that our audience actually seek out and experience? How can they learn more about the future? Elina.
Well, I think that you have to learn the facts. I have this equation for the future is like anticipation the future equals facts but plus imagination. So you have to know the facts, what is happening. So read books, listen to podcasts, look at the documentaries from TV, and also do something weird. This is my weird stuff, what I'm doing. This is hopeless.
Oh, that's crocheted.
Yeah, little Duff can there. Yeah, but also it's not so much academic. Do also something wild.
And Cathy, what would you recommend?
I love that idea of being, doing something weird. Absolutely love that. And I'm going to recommend something maybe not as analog. I would say if you really want to explore these technologies and better understand where the technology is going, where the signals are pointing to, definitely, put on a headset, find out what's in there, what kind of content is there, what kind of things can you do. Once we get back to some level of normalcy and you can go to a trade show where there might be technology, get your hands on these things. For example, at CES, I was able to demo a similar headset to this. This is a brain-computer interface device that allows me to...
And you put it on your head.
Yeah, and you put it on your head. It's like this. I'll leave it on. There you go. Yeah, it looks very fashionable. You're able to kind of like turn on lights with it. You're able to kind of, just using your thoughts, by the way, just reading your brain. I don't have to do anything. Or scroll on an iPad. So trying these technologies, connecting with people that are seeing these weak signals, I think is incredibly important. But yeah, don't be scared to do something weird.
For me, the really fundamental change that 5G is bringing is the concept of splitting the chip. This idea that now we've got these kind of supercomputer level chips on our end devices, but that means that they're very expensive, they're heavy, they have a short battery life, and what 5G allows is to have end devices that are as light and as cheap and as low power and as long battery life as possible, with the minimum processing on them. And this is where you start getting, augmented reality headsets that look like normal glasses when they're as light and as cheap as possible. And then 5G is the connection to the rest of the processing that is sitting at the network edge somewhere. And so and now if you don't have to worry about having the end user purchase that device, you don't have to have just one GPU, one graphical processing unit. You can have a whole stack of them, like NVIDIA is putting stacks of 40 GPUs into their network edge. And that splitting the chip, that is actually the thing that's really going to power this next wave of so many of the devices that are at the heart of the kinds of changes that we're talking about. So lighter, augmented reality headsets that are coming over the next couple of years, and the same structure for enabling robots and drones to have these light, cheap things and sensors of all kinds out there connected over 5G to super duper processing at the network edge. And so I see that both of you are nodding. Yeah. So I know that both of you you're probably not so focused on the telco arm of this, but thinking about kind of that splitting the chip and the lighter, cheaper end device, what kind of things are you seeing that structure will enable in the future? Elina, do you have does anything come to mind for you?
Yes. Well, I think that 5G is one that makes it possible, for example, when we are thinking about smart cities and we can save energy and we can actually have much smarter traffic and not traffic jams at all and these kind of things. So I think that it has many possibilities in many areas of life. If we think about your education, having this kind of virtual reality educational classes, you could travel in time. You could go back to the history to look at what has happened in the ancient Rome or something. And so it is full of possibilities. So I have to say, I'm really expecting that to happen.
I think everybody is, actually.
Yeah, technology enthusiast, I'm really waiting that to happen. Many possibilities there.
And Cathy, what comes to mind when you're thinking about 5G and its connection to the future?
Yeah, I definitely think 5G is moving us in that way, away from CPUs into GPUs being the most important thing. And like you said, it's an enabler. It's going to allow us. It's going to be the enabler that's going to allow what I call the Ray-Ban moment, which you mentioned, when we're wearing these sleek glasses and we're going to have content in front of us. And I think for communication service providers, what they need to start thinking about when it comes to 5G and when it comes to these technologies is how does that impact my, the small business consumer or the medium-sized consumer? And we get into the whole idea of spatial programming, right? Right now, if I'm a consumer and I'm on my phone and I'm walking to a restaurant, I'm checking the reviews, but that eventually is going to move from my cell phone into my headset. So what does that look like when people are actually looking at it in a spatial way? And that's called spatial programming. How are you going to enable those medium and those small to medium businesses and even the enterprise to allow for the spatial programming in a spatial plane? And I think the other thing that is really critical, Leslie, and you and I have talked about this, is 5G is going to enable the world to become machine readable. It's going to enable the world to become machine readable, to be, clickable, searchable, likable. And in some ways, it's going to allow for us to meet the machine. We're going to meet the machines in this virtual space and be able to communicate in a different world. So yeah, very excited about the possibilities of 5G for everyone from, communication service providers and beyond.
I have to say that I'm very enthusiastic about smart dust, which means that we can have these very tiny sensors, and we could, for example, paint the wall with this smart dust, and then the wall could react to the carbon dioxide level of the room and then send alarms to my mobile phone that, okay, now open the window or something. So we can have like computers everywhere and tiny computers everywhere that could help us and in a way like save energy and to make our health better and so on, to grow food better. So there's huge possibilities with this new connectivity.
And I think that if you combine spatial computing with IoT sensors and 5G, we're going to truly unleash the potential of big data and data analytics in a totally different level we've never seen before.
And artificial intelligence, the new level of that, because there's more and more data coming. Yeah.
One of the things that I see is that it's not just that this siloed thing is happening and this siloed thing is happening. It's that all of these things are happening together, as you all were just mentioning. And so we have visual analytics and IoT sensors and spatial computing, all of these things coming in at the same time. And so it's going to be how they all weave together that is actually going to be the thing that is truly, truly life-changing. And so Elina and Cathy, thank you very much for a wide-ranging and stimulating conversation. And I hope we've put some new ideas into the thoughts of our listeners today. And let's all go out there and make the world a better place.
Yes.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you, Leslie. We'll see you in the future.